So you're moving to Virginia Beach. This is the place you want to be. You've done your research. You've properly figured out of all the places to move, this is the place. Well, today I'm going to talk about surprises that I think that once you get here, you might have regretted the move, but they all can add up to a frustrating experience if you don't think about them and consider them before you come. So as I do my videos, a lot of people that will see my videos, they'll see things about Virginia Beach and about the general area around Virginia Beach, and they'll love it because there are things about it that are amazing. But what happens is, based on what you can see from wherever you're watching, it's not always fully contextualized. I do the best I can because I love trying to give as accurate of information as I can. But you can't always get exactly how it will feel, what it will look like, what the whole experience will be like. So these are some of the things that people, I think, are most surprised at when they get here. So number one is going to be that the mosquito output is so thick in Virginia Beach. And a lot of people will try and avoid water. The moisture content in the air is very high here, regardless of if you're near water, if you're in the woods, if you're in the suburbs. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it makes a difference, but anywhere you are, you'll have mosquito issues. So my wife and I, we have a baby. We have 2 cats. We love our screened-in porch because if we go outside during the summertime, especially in the evening times, all it takes is literally, 10, 15, 20 seconds before one of us is caught by a mosquito. So screen-in porches are important. But if you can't get a screen-in porch, because it's not always easy to get, I'd say make sure you have sprays, whether they're safe or whatever, however you want to do that to control how you feel around mosquitoes. Do it or be prepared to do it, because when you get here, you come outside and you're in the summertime especially, you'll be smacking yourself in a matter of seconds sometimes because there's just so many out here. It's not something you want to assume that when you get here, it's not going to be that big of a deal if you do get bitten by mosquitoes. The next is, this is a kind of a surprise that people don't often consider, is there are few sidewalks in neighborhoods in Virginia Beach. There are so many neighborhoods that were built in the 50s and 60s. They really didn't do much with sidewalks back then. You'd find some, but it's not really widespread. So some of my favorite neighborhoods don't have sidewalks, or very, very few of them. So when people come and they're like, hey, I want sidewalks, I want walkable aspects of the neighborhoods, I want to be able to take my kids on the sidewalks and keep them off the roads. That usually means you have to find newer neighborhoods that have those types of things. But a lot of the best neighborhoods, I think, in the area are the older neighborhoods, those 50s and 60s neighborhoods, or even the 70s and 80s. But a lot of those are missing those sidewalks. But because these neighborhoods are pretty quiet, you get used to not having sidewalks. So you have to kind of, that you're not on a sidewalk, you're not on a road. But cars don't go by very much or very fast in a lot of neighborhoods. But if you're coming here expecting it, you might be surprised that you don't see as many as you might like. Now we're going to number 4, which is how loud the jets really are. The Oceana Naval Air Station and the Fentress Airfield in Chesapeake are 2 places where there are jets that fly. If you're near the runway and within, a mile or 2 even or more, you will hear these jets on a semi-regular basis, especially during the day. I mentioned this in a lot of videos. You will stop your conversations. You can't keep talking if they fly too close because it's so loud. But how loud? Well, F-18s are pretty common in the Virginia Beach area, and those go up to around like 118 decibels. I would argue that they'd be higher than that. Online, I've seen that they say it's similar to a rock concert as far as how loud it is. They can be piercing. I've heard windows shake, the floors or walls will rumble. As you get closer to the runway or where they exactly fly, you'll hear it more. So it's not across the entire area. That's one thing I want to mention, is it's not across the entire city at all. There's the AICUZ, AICUZ, the Jet Noise Zone Map that shows you where the most intense spots are for noise. You can use that as a guide to determine if you like a house in a certain part of town. Go on there and check and see what zone your house, the house you're interested is in. So some people will ask, well, if it can be loud, but if it doesn't affect me inside, I won't be as worried about it, which is A lot of people talk about that, and that does help to not have to hear it inside. The closer you get to the Oceana Naval Air Station, the more you will hear it inside. And I will even check before you make a purchase. I would even, if you can, fly here or drive here, or get some recordings or something to give you an idea of what that noise sounds like and how loud it can be. If you got jets flying regularly, and it affects what you're doing, it affects your concentration, it affects if a baby is sleeping. All that stuff can be affected by these jets if you get closer to the station. Now, on the flip side, it's not always this bad in all the places where you would hear any. If you go further away from the runway or the Naval Air Station, you might hear it, but you might not hear it in the house, or even if you're outside and you hear it, it might be a distant noise. The next is an interesting one, which is I would get a primary care physician as early as possible, because it can be very hard to get a doctor's appointment if you don't have one already. So people moving here, if you don't have a specific doctor already, if you do have an issue and you're trying to call and get an appointment, it could be months before you can get a lot of people that you might have been recommended or you might want to talk to get an appointment. And so you might have to go to urgent care, the patient first type of thing. Doc in a box here, that might not be something you want to do unless you really have to. And so if I were you, I would try and get your insurance situation set up as early as possible once you move here. So hopefully not, but if you ever do have an issue, you won't be waiting for months to meet with someone that you actually want to meet with. Next is the complications that people have with getting around town and the interstate system. So the interstate system is very weird here. It's not very complicated in one sense, but they name it very weird. So you've got two primary interstates, Interstate 64 and Interstate 264. Interstate 264 is easy to drive across. I mean, it's east and west, right? East and west is like a belt, and it goes across the middle of the city in the middle of the Hampton Roads area, the south side. 64, on the other hand, is east and west, but it's in a horseshoe. So there are times when you're on 64 east and you're going south. There's times you're on 64 east and you're going west. It's almost even going north in one sense as you're turning into another interstate called 664. And on the flip side, 64 west can go east, it can go north. I would just not use the directions necessarily on the signs as a determination of actually which direction you're going. You have to start memorizing and getting a picture in your head of what the actual interstate system looks like. In addition to that, people that are locals get lost here all the time. I get lost. You hear me talk about neighborhoods all the time. I love the area and I know the area very well. There are certain parts of the area that there are no real grid systems in Virginia Beach that are real widespread. And so you'll have roads that will kind of trend, they'll kind of arch one way and then another one crosses over, another direction. They're not right angles. They kind of flow in from one to the other in weird ways. Looks like a web, a spider web or spaghetti of roads, some parts of Virginia Beach. And so that can be very confusing if you don't remember specific landmarks or how one road goes into another. So the next though is the humidity here is very real. It's a thing between June and August specifically, but it can be anywhere before then, maybe in May or September. It can be very hot and feel muggy for those 2 or 3 months. Each season or each year can change how the severity of the humidity. For example, this year was actually pretty nice. You'll find some hot chunks of week or two of mid 90s, upper 90s, and humid. But we've had nice stretches of 70s or 80s, and still, while relatively high humidity, doesn't feel as bad if you compare it to a place like Houston. I've heard Houston can be a lot worse than this, but Phoenix or that area that has dry heat, it will feel different than here. It's going to feel as you walk outside, like I sweat a lot, to be quite honest with you. And so I will walk outside, I'll go in my car, and I will feel it pretty quickly. So keep this in mind if you do not like heat. At least it's not going to be hot the entire year, and it's one of the benefits of the area. But when it is in the summertime, you will have a majority of that time will be pretty hot and uncomfortable during the sunny days especially, and during the day. Make sure your house is properly cooled, your air conditioning is working properly, because when you do need it and it doesn't work, you will be very frustrated, especially if it happens, like if your AC breaks on a Friday, you can't get help on till a Monday or Tuesday. It can be very frustrating to have to work through the process of getting AC back and running. The next is number 7, which is very little of this Virginia Beach city feels new. Okay, so what do I mean by that? I talk a lot about how great I love the neighborhoods in the city, and there are things that are new and being developed in Virginia Beach. The problem is that it is in a city that has been here for decades, since the 50s and 60s and 70s. And so those parts of the area that have been here for so long, a lot of it takes a long time for those places to get facelifts. And a lot of times they don't. They might stay, 60s types of construction in commercial areas, or strip malls that feel really old. As some, really get old, you'll see them get knocked over. Like, so for example, there are parts in the central part of Virginia Beach where, strip malls have been leveled and they're going to get rebuilt, or things are being built in its place. That is happening, but a very, very slow process to do that. And so most of the area is older. So while you're watching on video areas of Virginia Beach that feel great and feel fresh and lively, know that as you're going around town and going about your life, you'll be driving through parts that will feel very old. Not necessarily as old as like a 1920s Norfolk type of a thing. It's just aged, or the same thing over and over again. So there's just not a lot of like wow factor in a lot of parts of Virginia Beach. And the areas that are most commonly in demand, a lot of them are in places that were in demand back in the 80s and 70s and 60s. So keep that in mind as you move here, that the whole aesthetic of Virginia Beach is fine. It just might not be as wowing as you might have expected before you got here. Now, next is termites. Now, I've mentioned the humidity in the earlier part of the video. Termites love moisture. They love the high moisture content in the air. So because of the high moisture content, you have termites that are attracted. They love moisture and they feed off of wood. So if you do own a house, specifically crawl space houses, but also houses on slabs that don't have those crawl spaces, they're just on a concrete slab, even those can get eaten up by termites. And so I would strongly suggest getting a termite contract with a reputable termite company to come to do an annual check on your house to make sure that there are no termite infestations or moisture damage that can attract termites. So these termites can eat into wood and cause thousands and thousands of dollars worth of damage. So people that come from different parts of the country or the world that don't have the experience or just have any familiarity with termites, they don't even know that that's a thing to have someone come and check your house for termites. So don't be shocked when termites get discussed, or if they come and start eating into your house. Make sure you get protection before it becomes a problem. The next is people often are surprised at how flat it is here. There aren't many hills at all. You might find number one is Mount Trashmore, which people make a big deal about because it's really the one hill that's in the city that people have to work with. There are some other like few neighborhoods that have really subtle hills, but here it feels like a lot because there are so few hills at all in the area. Go to, like, for example, Princess Anne Hills. Princess Anne Hills is a neighborhood near the beach that has, it has some hills. It's a little hilly, but most of the city has almost nothing. So you go from one place to another. This also affects how it feels. So when I talk about, the redundancy of the strip malls and how it feels, like the age of the strip malls, the age of the buildings, the fact that it's flat also makes it feel kind of redundant over and over again because there really aren't a lot of places that feel that much different to other parts. So if you have any more questions about relocating to Virginia Beach or any of the other cities around Virginia Beach and Hampton Roads, or Virginia Beach through Williamsburg, let me know. It's what I do. I love helping people relocate to the area. So if you have questions, I have my contact information in the description. You can email me, call me, text me, and I'll do whatever I can to help you relocate to the area. And I will see you on the next video.